I'll just get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Paul Butler. I'm the Executive Director of Jasper Park Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome everyone on behalf of our organization and our partners in this initiative, which is Community Futures West Yellowhead. So I'll just say that there always seems to be some kind of a technical glitch, and today ours is that I can't seem to make the camera work, so you'll just have to believe I'm here in person. I want to thank the Alberta Chamber of Commerce for hosting the information session and taking charge of the mechanics of it, and introduce Carmen Reyes, who is the events marketing and communications coordinator with the Alberta Chamber of Commerce. And Alberta Chamber has helped us in the past, and I have a feeling will be again in future with putting on sessions like these, because we don't always feel we have that technical know-how. So I will shortly introduce our guest for the day, and I will just mention a couple of sort of, I guess, rules or understandings. Our guest, Emily Goldney, is Jasper Rebuild Planning Manager for Jasper Recovery section of Parks Canada. Emily is going to initiate this session with a presentation to describe the way Parks Canada is managing permitting with respect to rebuilds. Following this, we will have time for questions. We're asking you to pose the questions through the chat function. I will read the questions as that are turning up in the chat function, and I will do my best to choose from among the questions to those that are most pertinent. Perhaps I will try to sort of join questions of like topic. So that's the way we will be handling questions. I will ask that people respect that many will, of course, have questions pertaining to their personal situation and their personal rebuild. That's entirely reasonable. But we may feel that we need to limit discussion on issues specific to one property or one individual situation in order to have more time for other questions. So I hope you'll indulge me in guiding the timing of this session to respect the 1 hour that we have to move through this. I will point out in advance, even though that Emily will tell you that for further conversations about your individual circumstance, I know that folks within both the Municipal Development Office and Parks Canada are organized to have individual meetings with people to talk in more detail about your personal rebuild circumstance. So with that being said, I would like again to introduce Emily Goldney. And Emily, thank you for joining us today. Emily, please go ahead and share your slides and we will proceed.
Perfect. Well, I think our colleague from the Chamber of Commerce, from Alberta Chamber of Commerce, has the slides. So I'll let you share them and I'll start talking and introduce myself if that works for you. Hi everybody. My name's Emily Goldney and I'm the Rebuild Planning Manager for Parks Canada. For those of you who I haven't met, it's nice to meet you virtually and hopefully I get to meet you in person at some point. There's also some familiar faces on the call today, so it's lovely to see you all again. I've been living and working here in Jasper and working in planning and development since May of 2018. For our presentation today, I thought I would talk about the permit process, outline some factors that affect permit timelines, go over some key resources, and then we'll open the floor for some questions. Like Paul alluded to, we do have a hard stop at 3 p.m. as I do have a pre-application meeting right after this with someone else looking to rebuild. Before I dive any further into my presentation here, I did want to just say I am one of the fortunate people that did not lose my apartment in the fire, but I understand that that's not the same for many of you who are on the call today, and my heart truly goes out to all of you. So if you could go to the next slide here, we'll just scroll 2 down, please. So I thought I would start by just talking about the permitting process. So it is a 4-stage process for folks rebuilding following the fire. So the first stage is demolition permitting and debris removal and site cleanup, development permitting, then building permitting and occupancy permitting. So we'll go through each of those stages in a little bit more detail in the subsequent slides here. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the first step for folks rebuilding following the fire is demolition permitting. And broadly speaking, demolition and debris removal is on track for completion in the spring. There's a couple properties that might be delayed beyond this time frame for a whole variety of reasons. And the Jasper Recovery Coordination Center, the JRCC, is investigating options to expedite debris removal on those lots where it might delay things like utility reinstatement. Many certificates of completion have been issued to close out demolition permits in the town site, but confirmatory sampling reports do remain outstanding for many lots. So at the bottom of the slide there's just an overview of the number of demolition permits that have been closed out over time. So we're up to a total of 73 demolition permits that have been closed out. And when I say closed out, that's the same thing as issuing a certificate of completion. When we issue a certificate of completion, that means the demolition permit has been closed out. So if you could go to the next slide, please. I did want to speak a little bit about contamination, but I do want to throw in the caveat that I am far from a contamination expert. I'm just relaying this information from our team. But they did have a couple key messages that they wanted me to relay here. So one is that testing for contamination is typical after fire events. This is not a new or unique thing to Jasper. The testing requirements for Jasper were developed in September. They are based on national CCME standards, and they are similar to requirements developed for Fort McMurray. So tests have been completed at the majority of lots, and many of them are awaiting laboratory analysis. Analytical laboratory timelines have been longer than expected due to backlogs. So my understanding of the situation is that many contractors and companies are using the same laboratory for contamination sampling, and that laboratory has quite a backlog. So if you are in the position of having contamination sampling be slow, I did want to mention you are welcome to talk to your contractor to try to go to a different laboratory that may have different timelines. Those different timelines may be at a different price tag, but there's no requirement that you work through this lab. And if you are experiencing delays, you are welcome to explore whether other laboratories can achieve that confirmatory sampling under quicker timeframes. So we are starting to see some results from laboratories coming to Parks Canada. So far, roughly, very rough figure is about half of lots do have some contamination that has been detected. So where hotspots of contamination are detected, typically further excavation is conducted and then that location is resampled. Move on to the next slide, please. So step 2 in the process is development permitting, and I have labeled it as step 2. But I did want to emphasize to everyone listening that you can apply for and obtain a development permit while you are in the process of removing debris and closing out your demolition permit. So you do not have to wait for that demolition permit to be closed out to apply for a development permit. So to apply for development permit, there's a form on the park's website. There's a checklist listing all the necessary information. And the purpose of a development permit is really to confirm that a development proposal complies with the criteria and specifications set out in Parks Canada policies, acts, and regulations. If you can go to the next slide, please. So before applying for a development permit, we really do encourage applicants to consider hiring a project professional. One thing that we are seeing is that some applicants are looking to manage their project themselves, and that's okay. They're absolutely welcome to do so, and we'll work with them through the process. But there are professional project managers, contractors, design build companies out there that can take that burden away from you and take the process through from start to finish, who do this all the time and are comfortable with the process and don't have to learn it all from scratch. I recognize that that can come at a cost, but if that is something that's available to you, we do encourage you to hire a project professional. Typically, it makes things go faster. We also encourage applicants to consider reviewing the rebuilding guide, the land use policy, and the architectural motif. So the land use policy and the architectural motif are the two documents that set out the parameters for what types of developments and what shape and form of developments are allowed in Jasper. So when we receive an application, we will be reviewing that application for conformity with the land use policy and the architectural motif. We also encourage applicants to review the exterior building materials that are permitted in Jasper. So as of October 2024, we have introduced new requirements for building materials to enhance the community's wildfire resiliency. So that is something that is a little bit unique to Jasper. So we encourage you to check that out to make sure your proposed build complies with those parameters. I'll get into this a little bit more later, but the last thing I did want to highlight is that we are available for pre-application meetings. So if you have any questions about what a certain policy parameter means, what you are allowed to do on your leasehold, or how to complete a complete application, we are more than happy to meet with you. It saves us a mountain of work to meet with you before you start. And it is really unfortunate when someone spends tens of thousands of dollars on plans that we can't approve. So we really encourage you to meet with us to understand what's allowed and what's not allowed before you go to the time and expense of doing up plans. We go to the next slide, please. So step 3 in the process is building permitting. So as a reminder, that development permit confirms that a project complies with development parameters for Jasper. But a building permit confirms that the municipality has reviewed the proposal from an ops perspective, from a bylaw, from a fire department, from a utilities perspective to make sure all that is good to go. The safety codes officer will also review the application to make sure it conforms with code. And if the proposal contains commercial food services, a commercial hot tub or pool, that sort of thing, Alberta Health Services will also review the proposal. So to apply for a building permit, you'll get a letter that details your building permit requirements and what requirements pertain to your specific proposal. And then you'll have to get all those ducks in a row. And then once all that is completed, Parks Canada will issue the building permit. So you go to the next slide, please. So once the building permit is issued, that means you can go ahead and start building. Once you're done building, the final step in the process is to obtain an occupancy permit. An occupancy permit just confirms that the work has been done in accordance with approved plans and specifications. It closes out your permit with Parks Canada, your file's closed, you can go ahead and occupy the structure and you're good to go. So you go to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about some factors that influence permit timelines. So one of the really big factors that influences permit review and issuance timelines is that about 40% of the applications our office receives are complete and conforming. And what that means is about 60% of applications are either incomplete or non-conforming. So when something's complete and it conforms to our policy parameters, we can approve it first try. But when we get an application that is not complete or that does not conform with our policy parameters, we have to go back to you, to the applicant, to ask you to add additional information or make revisions to your proposal. And this back and forth can add a colossal amount of time to the process. So one of the best things that you can do to speed up your application review is to make sure that your application is complete and conforms to our development parameters so that we can approve it when we get it first try. We are working with some proponents who have asked for variances or exceptions to certain development restrictions, and we absolutely want to be flexible and to support residents and businesses in their rebuilds. So we're definitely willing to consider requests for exemptions. You're absolutely welcome to ask, but just please be aware that the answer to these types of requests might be no. And if it is a yes, reviewing the request may still add some time to the review process. So if you go to the next slide, please. One of the other things that our office is seeing is a lot of requests for amendments to applications that are under review or to permits that have already been issued. So typically in the pre-fire days when applicants put in a permit application for a new home or business, applicants had been dreaming of their new home or business for many, many years. and knew exactly what they wanted by the time they got to the permit stage. And I recognize that the same is not true for many of you. Many folks never wanted or thought that you'd be in a position to have to rebuild. And so what we're seeing is a lot of residents and businesses are changing their minds quite a bit throughout the permitting process. And that's absolutely okay. We absolutely want to work with you to amend your permanent application and get it to a place where you are happy with it and where you want to be. But it can add some time to the process. So one individual property has had over 20 requests for amendments to their permit and they haven't started building yet. So there may be more, and that has added time to that. So we go to the next one, please. This graphic is a little bit old, but I did just want to note that like many businesses in town, we have had some challenges recruiting and retaining staff. The only person that we have left on our team from immediately before the fire is our fabulous admin assistant, Carmelita. But I am really proud to say that Parks Canada has staffed up a lot. So before the fire, we only had 2 development officers. Now we've got over 10 people reviewing development applications, and planners from the municipality are also supporting the review of permit applications. So as our staffing contingent grows and gets trained and comfortable, the number of permits we're issuing each month is going up. Just to give some context to this graph, the reason the number of permits went down to 0 in August is because staff were evacuated and couldn't be working. And a huge amount of staff time was also devoted to pulling plans for everyone and issuing demolition permits in the fall. So as our demolition work winds down, the number of rebuild permits is also increasing. If you go to the next slide, please. So just to kind of wrap up, I did want to talk about some key resources. So the first and most critical thing is how to talk to the development team. So you are welcome to book a one-on-one meeting with a development officer by emailing jasperdevelopment@pc.gc.ca, and their wonderful admin Patrick will book you in with one of our development officers. You're also welcome to attend drop-in hours. So we have 2 hours in person each week at the train station. There are also virtual drop-in hours. If you just have a quick question or just want to come chat or see someone in person, you're welcome to do that. And that's a really great way to get those quick questions answered. We're also available by email or by phone if you want to email jasperdevelopment@pc.gc.ca, with the phone number 780-852-6123. One key message I did want to reiterate to everyone is that if you run into barriers in the rebuilding process, we'd love to hear it. We do want to be flexible and help where we can, and we don't know what those barriers are sometimes until you tell us. The next slide, please. The next resource I wanted to make everyone aware of on this call is that we have a development office statistics page. So this page has a lot of our metrics on average timelines for permit issuance, how many permits have been issued, whether it's a demolition permit, development permit, building permit, and the volume of applications we're currently reviewing. So the link is down at the bottom there. If you Google Parks Canada Jasper Recovery, that page will come up. If you go to the next slide, please. It's a little teensy tiny because it's difficult to fit onto a single slide, but that's just a snip or a screen grab from that website as well that shows the number of permits that's been issued during a given time frame. All right, next slide, please. I also wanted to make everyone aware that there is a permit map for fire affected properties. So it displays where properties have received a demolition and debris removal permit, where properties have closed out their demolition permit, where a development permit's been issued, and where building permits have been issued. So if you're curious about what type of activity is going on in your neighborhood, you can see where permits have been issued there. There's also a link on that page to our public notice page, which lists what has been approved for each property. So you can see, okay, at 1 Patricia Street, we've approved XYZ development. Okay, next one, please. And then the last resource I wanted to highlight was the rebuilding guide. So this was a piece of work that planners from the municipality and Parks Canada pulled together back in October. And it's meant to give you some really high-level information on the permitting process and some of the updates that were made to the land use policy and architectural motif back in October. It's a really great starting point for things to consider as you start to plan your rebuild. Next slide, please. Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention is that we have heard a lot of rumors swirling around this community. Jasper is a very small and very close-knit community, and I think we've all seen over the years that some strange rumors can come out. So one rumor that I have heard is that Parks Canada will only issue approvals for XYZ number of homes or XYZ number of businesses. I just wanted to reiterate that there's no limit on the number of permits that we'll issue. We will review as many come in and issue them as quickly as we can. One other thing that I've heard swirling around on the streets is that Parks Canada will withhold building permits from certain lots before utility installation is complete. So they are working to coordinate utility reinstallation in Cabin Creek, but that will not hold up building permit issuance. Building permits have already been issued for at least one lot in Cabin Creek, with more to come. There will be some coordination work with utilities. So utilities will be talking to contractors working in the area so that when utilities is building and backfilling their trench across a given lot, they'll be working with the contractors working on that lot to coordinate their work so that they're not coming into conflict with each other, but that will not hold back any building permit issuance. I also heard a rumor on the street that Parks Canada was going to take away land to build back lanes in Cabin Creek. That is not accurate. I've heard rumors that we're suspending issuance of licenses of private home accommodations or Airbnbs, and we are continuing to permit those as per our land use policy parameters. So we are continuing to permit private home accommodations where they're permitted under the land use policy. And I've also heard that Jasper's permit process is unique or different or special because it's a national park. And the permit process is generally quite similar to that in other municipalities. In most places, you do have to obtain building permits and occupancy permits and all that good stuff for any structure in any municipality in Canada. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it back to Paul and we can start accepting some questions.
Great, thanks very much, Emily, for that.